The squatter smiled as police told her it was a civil matter, her house stolen, her kids sleeping in a minivan. She recorded one desperate video and posted it online, hoping someone might help. What she didn't know, a biker leader recognized her address and remembered an old debt to her dead father. And he never forgot a promise. Sarah's hands trembled as she tried the key again. It didn't fit. She stepped back from her own front door, staring at the brass lock that suddenly looked different, newer, wrong. Mom, 10-year-old Emma tugged at her jacket. Why aren't we going inside? Just a second, sweetie. Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs. They'd only been gone 3 days, a budget weekend trip to her sister's place 2 hours away. 3 days. How could the lock be changed in 3 days? 7-year-old Max pressed his face against the living room window. Mom, there's people in our house. That's when Sarah saw him. A man in his 30s, heavily tattooed, wearing a stained tank top, pushed open her front door and stepped onto her porch like he owned the place. Behind him, a woman with bleached hair and a cigarette dangling from her lips appeared in the doorway. Can I help you? The man asked, his tone dripping with mock politeness. Sarah's mind went blank. This is my house. What are you doing in my house? The man smiled, a cold, calculated smile that made Sarah's stomach drop. Your house? Lady, we rent this place. Been here 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Sarah's voice cracked. I was here Monday morning. I live here. With my kids. The woman laughed. A harsh, grating sound. Sounds like someone's confused, babe. Sarah fumbled for her phone, her fingers shaking so badly she nearly dropped it. I'm calling the police. Go ahead, the man said, leaning against the doorframe. We got paperwork. The next 30 minutes felt like drowning in slow motion. 2 patrol officers arrived. Officer Martinez, an older man with kind eyes, and Officer Chun, younger and visibly uncomfortable. Sarah showed them everything. Her driver's license with this address, utility bills on her phone, photos of her kids in the living room from last week. Then the tattooed man produced a lease agreement. Sarah watched Officer Martinez's face fall as he examined it. The document looked official, signatures, dates, even a notary stamp. It claimed these people had rented the house 3 weeks ago from a property manager named Robert Davidson. I've never heard of Robert Davidson. Sarah's voice rose to a near scream. I own this house. My father left it to me when he died. Ma'am, I believe you, Martinez said quietly, and Sarah could hear the helplessness in his voice. But legally, this is a civil matter now. They have a lease. It's fake, I know, but we can't determine that in the field. You'll need to go through the courts, get an eviction order. Eviction? I have to evict people from my own house. Officer Chen shifted uncomfortably. The law's complicated with squatter situations. If they have any documentation claiming residency, even fraudulent documentation, we can't physically remove them without a court order. It's to protect legitimate renters from being illegally evicted. How long? Sarah's voice came out as a whisper. Martinez's pause told her everything. Could be weeks, maybe months, depending on the court backlog. Sarah felt the world tilt. Months. In the meantime, the tattooed man called from the porch. You're trespassing on our rental property. Might want to leave before we call the cops. The woman cackled. Emma started crying. Max wrapped his arms around his sister. Sarah wanted to scream, to fight, to drag these people out by their hair, but the officer's expressions told her that would only get her arrested. Her, not them. Come on, kids, she whispered, her voice hollow. As she turned to leave, the tattooed man called out. Oh, and lady, your stuff's on the side yard. Didn't want to keep junk in our house. Sarah rounded the corner and stopped cold. Trash bags. At least a dozen black trash bags, split open. Her family's belongings spilled across the grass like garbage. Her grandmother's quilt trampled in the dirt. Emma's art projects ripped and scattered. Her father's military photos bent and muddy. Emma saw the bags and began sobbing harder. My stuffed animals. Sarah dropped to her knees and started grabbing what she could, shoving items back into bags, tears streaming down her face. The officers helped silently, their jaws tight with restrained anger. Neighbors watched from windows. Mrs. Chun from next door came out, horror on her face. Sarah, what's happening? Squatters. Officer Martinez said quietly. Got fake papers. Can't you do something? Not without a court order. As the sun began setting, Sarah loaded the last bag into her minivan, a 2008 Honda Odyssey with 180,000 miles and a cracked windshield. Everything they owned now crammed into one vehicle. Where are we going, Mommy? Max asked, his voice small. Sarah looked at her house, her father's house, the place where she'd grown up, where she'd brought both her babies home from the hospital, and saw strangers moving behind the curtains. Her curtains. We'll figure it out, baby, she tried to sound confident, but her voice shook. That night, parked 3 blocks away under a broken streetlight, Sarah sat in the driver's seat while her children slept in the back. Emma clutched a dirty stuffed rabbit they'd rescued. Max used his jacket as a pillow. Sarah's phone screen illuminated her tear-stained face as she opened Facebook. Her hands still trembling, she started recording a video. Hi, I'm Sarah Mitchell, and today someone stole my house. Her voice cracked, but she kept going. She told the story, haltingly, emotionally, showing the trash bags in the back seat, panning to her sleeping children. She explained the police couldn't help, that the squatters had fake papers, that she might not get her home back for months. I don't know what to do, she whispered to the camera. If anyone knows a cheap lawyer, or has any advice, or, I'm sorry, I'm just lost. She posted it to the Riverside County Community Forum, a local Facebook group with maybe 3,000 members, and set her phone down. Within minutes, comments started appearing. This is outrageous. Sharing this everywhere. Those people should be in jail. I know a lawyer, dang you. Sarah watched numbly as the share count climbed, 47, 89, 143. She didn't dare hope. Hope was dangerous now. Exhausted, she reclined her seat and closed her eyes, listening to her children's soft breathing. She didn't know that 100 miles away, in a weathered clubhouse that smelled of motor oil and leather, a man named Frank was about to see her video. She didn't know her father had saved that man's life. And she definitely didn't know that by sunrise, everything was about to change. Sarah woke to her phone buzzing violently. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then the cramped driver's seat, the ache in her neck, and the reality of her minivan bedroom came crashing back. Her phone screen showed 2:47 a.m. and 247 notifications. Sarah sat up, her heart racing. She opened Facebook and gasped. Her video had been shared 3,872 times. The comments section had exploded into hundreds of messages, some supportive, some skeptical, some angry at the system, others arguing about squatters' rights versus property rights. But everyone was talking about it. This happened to my aunt last year. Cost her $8,000 in legal fees. How is this legal? This is literally home invasion. My cousin's a reporter at Channel 7. Sending this to her now. Lawyer here. DM me. I might be able to help pro bono. Sarah's hands shook as she scrolled. The video had jumped from her small community group to countywide forums, then to several local news pages. Someone had posted it in a legal advice subreddit. Another person shared it to a victims' rights advocacy page. She checked the back seat. Emma and Max still slept, curled together under her old jacket. At least they were getting some rest. Her phone buzzed with a direct message. Marissa Torres, Sarah, I'm a producer at News Channel 12. Would you be willing to do an interview tomorrow? This story needs attention. People need to know this is happening. Before Sarah could respond, another message popped up. Jennifer Park, Legal Aid Society, saw your video. We handle housing displacement cases. Come to our office at 9 a.m., 411 Center Street. Bring any documentation you have. Don't lose hope. Sarah felt tears welling again, but this time they weren't just from despair. People cared. Strangers were trying to help. She screenshotted everything, backing up every offer, every contact. Then she saw a comment that made her pause. Rod Hammer Walsh. Where is this? What's the address? The profile picture showed a bearded man in sunglasses standing beside a motorcycle. Sarah almost ignored it, probably just someone being nosy, but something made her click on his profile. The page was filled with motorcycle photos, rally pictures, and group shots of tough-looking men and women in leather vests. His cover photo showed at least 50 bikes lined up with a banner. Iron Hawks MC, Riverside Chapter. Iron Hawks. The name stirred something in Sarah's memory, something from years ago, something her father had mentioned, but exhaustion made her thoughts fuzzy. She couldn't place it. She ignored the comment and kept scrolling. More messages flooded in. A woman offered her guest room for a week. A man who owned a storage unit company said she could store her belongings for free. Someone started a GoFundMe without asking permission. It had already raised $340. Sarah covered her mouth, suppressing a sob that might wake her kids. At 3:15 a.m., unable to sleep despite her exhaustion, she recorded a second video. "I just want to say thank you," she whispered, her face close to the phone screen. "I didn't expect. I thought maybe a few people might see this and give advice. But you're all being so kind." She wiped her eyes. "I have a meeting with legal aid tomorrow morning. I'm going to fight this. For my kids. For my dad. He left me this house, and those people have no right to it." Her voice hardened slightly. "And to the people saying I should just move on or find a new place, this isn't just about a house. It's about justice. It's about people not being able to just steal what's yours with fake papers and a smile." She paused, looking back at her sleeping children. "My dad always told me, good people still exist. They'll show up when you need them most." I'm starting to believe he was right. She posted the video and finally let herself close her eyes. Across town, in a cinder block building with motorcycles parked in neat rows outside, Frank Mallory watched Sarah's second video for the third time. He'd been awake since Rod sent the link to the club's group chat 2 hours ago. Now, sitting at the long wooden table where the Iron Hawks held their meetings, Frank stared at the address Sarah had mentioned in the comments. 1247, Oak Ridge Drive. He knew that house. Frank stood and walked to a dusty shelf in the corner, pulling down a photo album the club kept, memories from over the years. He flipped through pages until he found it. December 2008. The photo showed a younger Frank and 11 other bikers, covered in snow, standing in someone's garage. They were smiling, holding mugs of coffee, looking exhausted but alive. Behind them, you could just see into the house, and in the background, a man in a military uniform stood smiling. Sarah's father, John Mitchell. Frank remembered that night like it was yesterday. They'd been caught in a freak snowstorm coming back from a charity ride, temperatures dropping to deadly levels. Every hotel was full. The clubhouse was 50 miles away. John Mitchell had seen them trying to shelter under a gas station awning. He'd pulled over, told them to follow him home, and opened his garage. Gave them hot food, warm blankets, and probably saved 3 guys from frostbite. When Frank tried to pay him, John had refused. "Just help someone else someday," he'd said. Frank closed the album slowly. He pulled out his phone and opened the Iron Hawks group chat, 42 members strong. "Frank, church meeting, 7 a.m. Every member who can ride. We got a debt to pay." The responses came in immediately. "I'm in. What's happening? Be there." Frank looked at Sarah's video one more time, then typed a message he didn't send. "Not yet. Your old man saved our lives once. Now it's our turn." He'd tell her tomorrow, after they showed up. The rumble of motorcycles shattered the pre-dawn silence. By 6:45 a.m., the Iron Hawks clubhouse parking lot was full. Bikes of every style, choppers, cruisers, touring bikes, lined up in disciplined rows. 42 members had shown up, some driving from counties away after Frank's middle-of-the-night message. Inside, the meeting room smelled of coffee and leather. Men and women in their club vests, adorned with patches earned through years of brotherhood, filled every seat. The younger members stood along the walls, arms crossed, waiting. Frank stood at the head of the table, the photo album open in front of him. "Most of you weren't there that night," Frank began, his gravelly voice commanding instant silence. "December 2008. We did that toy run for the Children's Hospital, remember? Raised 12 grand that year." Nods around the room. "Coming back, we hit that storm. Temperature dropped to 15 degrees in 20 minutes. Visibility was nothing. We were freezing, literally dying on those bikes." Rod Hammer Walsh, now the club's sergeant-at-arms, spoke up. "My hands were so numb I couldn't work the clutch. Tommy nearly crashed twice. Every hotel was booked solid. Christmas season," Frank continued. We tried to shelter at a gas station, but the owner kicked us out. Said we looked like trouble. He smiled bitterly. Guess we did. He turned the album around, showing the room the photo. This man pulled over in the middle of that storm. Told us to follow him. Opened his garage, brought out space heaters, made food. His wife, rest her soul, gave us blankets. They had a little girl, maybe 5 years old, and she brought us her stuffed animals because she thought we were cold. A few members chuckled softly, but their eyes were serious. That man was John Mitchell. Army vet, contractor, single dad after his wife passed. Frank's jaw tightened. He saved our lives. I told him we owed him. He said, just help someone else someday. Frank closed the album. John died 4 years ago. Heart attack. Left everything to his daughter. He pulled out his phone and played Sarah's video. The room watched in complete silence. When Sarah's voice cracked talking about her children sleeping in the van, several members shifted uncomfortably. When the video showed the trash bags with her family's belongings, someone muttered a curse. Frank let the video end before speaking. That's John's daughter. That's his grandkids. And that house those scumbags are squatting in, that's the house where John Mitchell saved our lives. The room erupted. We ride right now. Let me make a call. I know people. Those punks won't know what hit them. Frank raised his hand, and silence fell immediately. We do this smart, he said firmly. We're not criminals. We're not vigilantes. We ride in, we document everything, we stay legal, and we make sure those squatters know they picked the wrong house. What's the play? Asked Maria Ghost Reyes, the club's VP and a former paralegal. Ghost, you're on documentation. Cameras, photos, everything. Keep it legal. Public property only. Frank pointed to another member. Juice, you handle social media. Record everything. Post everything. We make this so public they can't hide. He turned to Rod. Hammer, you coordinate with local news. Someone in the comments said Channel 12 wants to cover it. Let's give them a story. What about the cops? Someone asked. We cooperate fully, Frank said. We're not there to break laws. We're there to support a woman whose father was family. The squatters broke the law, not us. Ghost raised her hand. I looked up the property records this morning. Sarah Mitchell is the sole owner. Deeds clear, taxes paid, no liens. Those squatters' lease is definitely fraudulent. How long until she can legally evict them? Could be 8 to 12 weeks if they fight it. Courts are backed up. The room groaned. Then we make those 8 weeks hell, Frank said coldly. Legal hell. Public pressure hell. We document every law they break, every threat they make. We don't give them a moment of peace. He looked around the room at faces he'd known for decades. Mechanics and teachers, veterans and business owners, all bound by loyalty. John Mitchell didn't ask questions that night. He just helped. Now we do the same. Frank's voice dropped. We ride at noon. Full colors. I want every bike that can roll. We're going to remind those squatters that some families don't stand alone. What about Sarah? Maria asked. Does she know we're coming? Frank shook his head. Not yet. Let her handle the legal stuff this morning. We'll be the surprise reinforcement. Rod grinned. They're going to shit themselves when they see us roll up. That's the idea, Frank said. But remember, discipline first. We're not outlaws. We're citizens standing up for justice. Keep it clean, keep it legal, keep it loud. He placed his hand flat on the table. One by one, every member in the room placed their hand on top, a tower of solidarity. For John Mitchell, Frank said. For John Mitchell, the room echoed. As the meeting broke up and members headed to their bikes, Frank pulled out his phone. He found Sarah's Facebook profile and typed a message, then deleted it. She'd understand soon enough. At 11:47 a.m., engines began to roar. The Iron Hawks were riding to war, the legal kind. Sarah sat in the cramped waiting room of the Legal Aid Society, Emma coloring quietly beside her while Max played a game on her phone. The morning had been a blur. She'd woken her kids at 7 a.m. in the minivan, used a gas station bathroom to wash faces and brush teeth, then driven straight here. Jennifer Park, the attorney who'd messaged her, turned out to be a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s with kind but realistic demeanor. I won't lie to you, Sarah, Jennifer said, spreading documents across her desk. This is going to be tough. California's tenant protection laws are strong, even when those tenants are criminals with forged documents. How long? Sarah asked, though she dreaded the answer. Best case? 6 weeks if we expedite and they don't fight. Worst case? 3 months if they hire a lawyer and drag it out. Jennifer saw Sarah's face fall. I know it's not what you want to hear, but we'll file an unlawful detainer lawsuit today. I'm also reporting the forged lease to the DA's office. That's fraud, possibly identity theft. 3 months, Sarah whispered. I can't afford a hotel for 3 months. I can barely afford gas. The GoFundMe is up to $800, Jennifer said gently. And we'll fight for expedited proceedings based on fraud. You're not alone in this. At 1:15 p.m., Sarah pulled onto Oak Ridge Drive, her stomach knotting as her house came into view. Then she slammed on her brakes. 12 motorcycles lined the street in front of her house. Leather-clad bikers moved across her lawn, not chaotically, but with military precision. One man operated a professional-grade camera on a tripod. A woman with silver hair made notes on a tablet. 2 large men collected the remaining trash bags, carefully organizing items. Mom, who are those people? Emma asked nervously. Sarah didn't answer. She couldn't. On her porch, the squatters stood watching, their earlier bravado replaced with visible unease. The tattooed man, whose name she'd learned from Jennifer was Kyle Sanders, a con artist with 3 prior arrests, kept glancing at the bikers, then at his phone. Sarah parked and climbed out slowly. A massive, bearded man approached, his leather vest covered in patches. Despite his intimidating appearance, his eyes were warm. Sarah Mitchell? He asked. Why, yes. Name's Frank Mallory. Iron Hawks Motorcycle Club. He extended a hand. Your father saved my life once. Figured it's time we returned the favor. Sarah's mind reeled. My father? I don't understand. December 2008. Snowstorm. Your dad opened his garage to our club when we were freezing to death. Frank smiled softly. You were about 5. Gave us your stuffed animals to keep warm. The memory crashed back. Bikers filling their garage, her dad making soup, her mom bringing out blankets. She'd been scared at first, but the bikers had been gentle, one even showing her his motorcycle patches. That was you. Sarah's voice cracked. That was us. And when I saw your video last night and recognized the address, Frank gestured to the house. Your dad told me once, just help someone else someday. Well, today's that day. Tears filled Sarah's eyes. But what can you do? The police said. We know what the police said. We're not here to break laws. Frank turned, and Sarah saw the organized operation happening across her property. We're here to document, to witness, and to make sure these squatters know they're being watched. Every move they make, every law they break, we're recording it. A woman approached, the silver-haired one. Sarah? I'm Maria, former paralegal. I've been documenting everything they've done to your property. Illegal dumping, property damage, potential theft. All of it can help your case. There's more, Frank said. He nodded toward a news van pulling up at the end of the street. Channel 12 wants an interview. We figured you might want to tell your story to more than just Facebook. Sarah watched as a reporter and cameraman emerged from the van. Neighbors were coming out now too. Mrs. Chun, the Pattersons from 2 doors down, even old Mr. Velasquez who never left his house. On the porch, Kyle Sanders' face had gone pale. He pulled out his phone, arguing with someone in a harsh whisper. They're scared, Sarah said, almost laughing in disbelief. They should be, Rod Hammer, Walsh said, walking up with a tablet. We've identified them. Kyle Sanders, wanted for fraud in Nevada. His girlfriend, Tina Brooks, 2 outstanding warrants. The other guy inside, registered sex offender living within 500 feet of a school. He showed Sarah the screen. All public information. All going to the DA. Sarah's hands shook, not from fear this time, but from something else. Hope mixed with rage mixed with gratitude. Why are you doing this? She whispered. You don't even know me. Frank's expression grew serious. Your dad didn't know us either. Didn't matter. He saw people who needed help, and he helped. That's what good people do. He gestured to the growing crowd of bikers, neighbors, and news crews. Besides, your family. You just didn't know it yet. Emma tugged Sarah's hand. Mom, are the bikers good guys? Sarah looked at Frank, at Maria, at the Iron Hawks carefully collecting her family's belongings from the mud, treating each item like it mattered. Yeah, baby, Sarah said, wiping her eyes. They're the best guys. From the porch, Kyle Sanders shouted. You can't intimidate us. We have rights. Frank didn't even look at him. He just smiled at Sarah and said quietly, just wait. We're just getting started. As the Channel 12 reporter approached with her cameraman, Sarah heard more engines in the distance. More were coming. The interview with Channel 12 went viral within hours. Sarah told her story with Emma and Max beside her, the Iron Hawks standing respectfully in the background. The reporter, Lisa Chun, didn't hold back. She showed the forged lease, interviewed neighbors who confirmed Sarah had lived there for years, and even got a legal expert on camera explaining how squatters exploit tenant protection laws. By 4 p.m., the story was the top trending topic in Riverside County. By 5 p.m., it had spread statewide. And Kyle Sanders was furious. This is harassment, he screamed from the porch, filming the bikers with his phone. I'm calling my lawyer. You're all gonna get sued. Frank, sitting calmly on his bike across the street, didn't even flinch. Public street, public property. We have every right to be here. Bullshit. You're trying to intimidate us. Maria looked up from her tablet, her voice ice cold. Actually, Kyle, or should I call you Kevin Sanderson, which is the name on your Nevada warrant? We're documenting. There's a difference. Kyle's face went red. He disappeared inside, slamming the door. What happened next was strategic escalation. At 5:30 p.m., Tina Brooks emerged and deliberately kicked over Emma's bicycle, one the bikers had carefully cleaned and set aside. The bike clattered into the driveway, the front wheel now bent. Oops, Tina said with a vicious smile, looking directly at the cameras. Emma burst into tears. Sarah held her daughter, rage building in her chest. Got it, said Juice, the club's media guy, reviewing his footage. Property destruction on camera. That's going to the police and the DA. At 6 p.m., music began blasting from inside the house. Heavy metal at ear-splitting volume. The bass shook windows up and down the street. Mr. Velasquez came out, wincing. I have a heart condition. I can't take this noise. Maria was already on her phone with the police. Noise ordinance violation. Officers are on their way. At 6:45 p.m., the third member of the squatting group, a wiry man named Derek, came out and started yelling obscenities at 7-year-old Max. That's when Rod stepped forward. Hey, his voice was quiet, but it carried weight like a hammer. You want to scream at someone? Scream at me. But you yell at that kid one more time, and we're going to have a problem. Derek opened his mouth, saw Rod's expression, and backed up into the house. Sarah sat on the curb, her kids huddled close, watching the circus her life had become. Part of her wanted to run, to just give up and find somewhere else to live. But then she'd look at the Iron Hawks, these strangers who'd shown up because her father had been kind 17 years ago, and something in her hardened. Mrs. Mitchell? A young biker approached, maybe 25, with nervous eyes. I'm Tommy. I was on that ride in '08. I was 19, stupid, would have frozen to death if not for your dad. He held out a sandwich and juice boxes. Figured your kids might be hungry. Sarah's throat tightened. Thank you. As darkness fell, more happened. The police arrived for the noise complaint. Kyle refused to turn down the music, so they issued a citation. He tore it up in front of them. That's destruction of a legal document, Officer Martinez said tiredly, writing another citation. At 8 p.m., Derek tried to sneak out the back to dump more of Sarah's belongings, including her father's military medals, into the trash. He froze when he found two bikers calmly standing at the back gate. Going somewhere? One asked. Derek retreated. At 9 p.m., Jennifer Park arrived with good news and bad news. The good news: the DA is taking the fraud case seriously. With the evidence the bikers collected, they're considering criminal charges, she paused. Bad news: Kyle hired a lawyer. A sleazy one, but legitimate. They're fighting the eviction. He's claiming this is all a setup, that you're harassing legal tenants. Sarah felt her hope crumble. So we're back to months of waiting. Not necessarily. Jennifer glanced at Frank, who had walked over. The judge scheduled an emergency hearing for Friday morning, day after tomorrow. With all this media attention and the criminal investigation, they're fast-tracking it. But Sarah, you need to be prepared. These people are going to fight dirty. As if on cue, Kyle appeared at an upstairs window, Sarah's bedroom window, and hurled something out. It was her father's ashes. The urn shattered on the driveway, ceramic shards and ash scattering across the concrete. Sarah screamed. She bolted forward, but Frank caught her, holding her back as she fought and sobbed. Emma and Max stood frozen in horror. Let me go, Sarah shrieked. Let me go? I'll kill him. That's what he wants, Frank said firmly, restraining her. He wants you to attack him, get arrested, look unstable. Don't give him that. Kyle laughed from the window. Oops. Clumsy me. Maria was already on the phone. That's desecration of human remains. That's a felony. But Sarah had collapsed, kneeling on the driveway, trying to gather her father's ashes with shaking hands. Emma and Max knelt beside her, all three crying. The Iron Hawks formed a protective circle around them, shielding them from view as news cameras rolled. Frank pulled out his phone and sent a mass text to every Iron Hawks chapter in California. Emergency call, 1247, Oak Ridge Drive, Riverside. Tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. Bring everyone. Within minutes, responses flooded in. Los Angeles chapter rolling out. 47 bikes. San Diego here. 38 confirmed. Orange County. 52 riders. Sacramento. 41 bikes. We're coming. Frank knelt beside Sarah, his voice gentle but firm. Get some rest tonight. Tomorrow, we end this. How? Sarah whispered, ash still on her hands. Frank looked up at Kyle's silhouette in the window. Tomorrow, he's going to learn what happens when you mess with family. In the distance, more engines rumbled. The storm was gathering. The rumble started at 5:47 a.m. Mrs. Chun woke first, confused by what sounded like distant thunder. But the sky was clear. Then her windows began to vibrate. By 5:55 a.m., the entire neighborhood was awake. They came from every direction, a river of chrome and leather flowing toward Oak Ridge Drive. The Iron Hawks main chapter led the procession, but behind them came bikers from across the state. Los Angeles, San Diego, Sacramento, Fresno, Orange County, even a contingent from San Francisco who'd ridden through the night. Choppers, cruisers, touring bikes, trikes for the older riders, each one carrying men and women in leather vests, American flags mounted on their bikes, rippling in the dawn breeze. Sarah stood on the sidewalk, Emma and Max on either side of her, watching in absolute disbelief as the street filled with motorcycles. 20 bikes, 50, 100. They kept coming. The engines created a symphony of raw power, perfectly synchronized as riders parked in formation with military precision. Row after row, bike after bike, until Oak Ridge Drive and every connecting street was lined with chrome. Frank pulled up beside Sarah and cut his engine. The grin on his face was fierce. How many? Sarah whispered. 312, last count. Still more coming. 312. Sarah's legs nearly gave out. Inside the house, Kyle Sanders peered through the curtains, his face drained of all color. Tina stood behind him, her earlier bravado completely gone. What the fuck? Derek's voice cracked. What the actual fuck? The bikers began dismounting. Not chaotically, this was organized. Veterans moved to the front, carrying American flags. Women formed a secondary line. Camera crews from every major news outlet in Southern California set up equipment, their reporters already going live. This is Lisa Chun reporting from Riverside, where an extraordinary scene is unfolding. Hundreds of bikers from across California have arrived to support Sarah Mitchell, the single mother whose home was taken over by squatters 3 days ago. Frank raised his hand, and the crowd fell silent. 300 people, absolutely quiet. He climbed onto the bed of a pickup truck someone had positioned in front of Sarah's house. My name is Frank Mallory, president of the Iron Hawks Motorcycle Club. His voice carried across the street. We're here because 17 years ago, the man who owned this house saved our lives. John Mitchell was Army, a patriot, and a good man who helped people without asking questions. The crowd murmured agreement. His daughter, Sarah, inherited this house legally. She owns it. She pays taxes on it. She raised her kids here. Frank's voice hardened. 3 days ago, criminals with forged documents stole her home. They threw her children's belongings in the trash. They destroyed family heirlooms. Last night, they threw her father's ashes onto the driveway like garbage. Angry shouts erupted from the crowd. We're not here for violence, Frank continued, raising his hands. We're here for justice. Legal justice. We're here to show these squatters, and anyone else who thinks they can exploit the system, that some families don't stand alone. The crowd roared approval, the sound deafening. Maria stepped forward with a megaphone, her paralegal training on full display. We have documented 23 separate violations in the past 18 hours, she announced. Property destruction, noise ordinances, threatening a minor, desecration of human remains, illegal dumping. All of it photographed, recorded, and submitted to the district attorney. Another roar from the crowd. Channel 7 News here. A reporter pushed through. Ms. Mitchell, can you tell us what this means to you? Sarah, overwhelmed, could barely speak. These people. My dad would have been so proud. Emma tugged her mother's sleeve. Mom, look. Every single biker had removed their sunglasses. 300 faces, looking directly at the house, expressions hard as stone. It was the most intimidating thing Sarah had ever seen, and they were on her side. Inside the house, panic had set in. We need to leave, Tina said, frantically stuffing clothes into a bag. Kyle, we need to leave now. Shut up. Let me think. Kyle's hands shook as he called his lawyer. The call went to voicemail. He tried again. Voicemail. Derek peered out the back window. There's bikers in the alley too. They've got us surrounded. They can't do that. That's illegal. They're on public property, Derek said, his voice hollow. They're not doing anything illegal. They're just standing there. At 6:30 a.m., Officer Martinez arrived with 6 additional squad cars. Sarah's heart sank. Were they going to make the bikers leave? But Martinez walked straight to Frank. Got a call about a disturbance, Martinez said. No disturbance, officer. Just concerned citizens exercising their First Amendment rights on public property. Martinez looked at the sea of bikers, then at the house, then back at Frank. A smile tugged at his lips. Carry on, then. Just keep it peaceful. Wouldn't have it any other way. As Martinez walked back to his car, he paused beside Sarah. The DA called me this morning. Emergency eviction hearing is at 10 a.m. Judge Richardson, he doesn't tolerate fraud. You might want to be there. Sarah's heart leaped. 10 a.m.? That's 3.5 hours, Martinez finished. Your lawyer knows. And Ms. Mitchell? Those squatters destroyed my faith in humanity a bit. This, he gestured to the bikers. This restores it. As he drove away, Frank's phone buzzed. He read the message and smiled, a predator's smile. They just tried to call 911, he announced to the crowd. Claimed they were being held hostage. Laughter rippled through the bikers. Dispatch told them they'd send officers to escort them out if they felt unsafe. More laughter. Frank looked up at the house, where Kyle's pale face was visible in the window. Your move, Frank said quietly. The sun rose higher, bathing 300 bikers in golden light. The siege had begun. At 8:15 a.m., the first crack appeared. Derek tried to slip out the back door, carrying 2 duffel bags stuffed with what Sarah recognized as her electronics, her laptop, her kids' tablets, even her father's old radio. He made it exactly 4 steps before finding himself face-to-face with a wall of leather vests. Going somewhere? Asked a female biker, arms crossed. Derek froze. Behind her stood at least 30 more riders, all watching him with expressions that could cut glass. I'm just leaving. That's legal, right? I can leave. Sure can, Frank said, walking around from the side yard. But those bags, those don't belong to you. This is my stuff. Maria appeared with her tablet. That's a MacBook Pro, serial number visible in our photographs from 3 days ago when they dumped Sarah's belongings. That tablet has a school district ID sticker. That radio is a military-issue item from 1987-inch, she smiled coldly. Want to try again? Derek's face went white. He dropped the bags and bolted back into the house. The crowd erupted in laughter and applause. By 8:45 a.m., the pressure was becoming unbearable. News helicopters circled overhead. Every major network was covering the story live. The street had become a media circus, reporters interviewing bikers, neighbors, legal experts. Someone had started selling coffee from a food truck, donating proceeds to Sarah's GoFundMe, which had now reached $47,000. Inside the house, Kyle was unraveling. "This is insane," he screamed at Tina. "They can't do this." "But they are doing it." Tina shrieked back. "There's 300 of them. The cops aren't helping us. Our lawyer won't even answer." Kyle tried social media, posting a video claiming he was being terrorized by a biker gang. Within minutes, the comments destroyed him. "You stole her house, dude. You get what you deserve. Terrorists? They're standing on a public street. You threw a dead man's ashes on the ground." Those bikers include teachers, veterans, and nurses. Try again. Kyle deleted the video, but screenshots had already spread everywhere. At 9:30 a.m., Jennifer Park arrived for Sarah. "Hearings in 30 minutes. You need to be there." She looked at the assembled bikers. "And maybe bring some friends." Frank nodded. "Hammer, Ghost, Tommy, you're with Sarah? Rest of you, hold the line." As Sarah's minivan pulled away, escorted by a dozen motorcycles, the remaining bikers tightened formation around the house. The hearing itself was swift and brutal. Judge Richardson, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s, reviewed the evidence with sharp eyes. Kyle's lawyer, a sweaty man named Brenner, tried arguing tenant rights, but the judge cut him off. "Mr. Brenner, your clients presented a lease agreement allegedly signed 3 weeks ago. Ms. Mitchell has utility bills, mortgage payments, and tax records going back for years. She has photographs showing her children living in this home as recently as 6 days ago." Judge Richardson's voice could have frozen lava. "Are you seriously arguing your clients have legitimate tenancy?" "Your Honor, procedurally." "I'm asking about legitimacy, counselor." Brenner's pause said everything. Furthermore, the judge continued, pulling out a document. "The DA's office filed criminal fraud charges this morning against Kyle Sanders, Tina Brooks, and Derek Marsh. The notary stamp on their lease? Stolen. The property manager they claim to have rented from? Doesn't exist. The signatures? Forged." She slammed her gavel. "I'm issuing an immediate order of possession to Sarah Mitchell. The defendants have until 2 p.m. today to vacate the premises. Sheriff's Department will enforce if necessary. This court also awards Ms. Mitchell $15,000 in damages, plus legal fees, plus any additional damages to be determined at a later hearing." Another slam. "And Mr. Brenner? Tell your clients they're lucky I can't hold them in contempt for wasting this court's time. They're free to leave now, before the criminal charges catch up to them." Sarah burst into tears. By 11:47 a.m., they were back at Oak Ridge Drive. Frank was waiting on the porch, Sarah's porch, holding the official eviction order. When she got out of the van, he simply nodded. "It's done?" he asked. "It's done," Sarah whispered. Frank walked to the front door and knocked, formal and controlled. Kyle opened it, his face haggard. Behind him, Tina and Derek were already packing frantically. "Eviction order," Frank said, handing him the paper. "You have until 2 p.m. I suggest you start moving." Kyle looked at the document, then at Frank, then at the 300 bikers filling the street, and something inside him broke. "We're going," he said quietly. All the fight had drained from his voice. "We're leaving." Smart choice. What followed was the most humiliating walk of Kyle Sanders' life. Under the watchful eyes of hundreds of people, 3 news helicopters, and at least 50 cameras, the squatters carried their belongings to a beat-up sedan. No one helped them. No one moved. The crowd just watched in absolute silence. When Derek tried to take a lamp, one of Sarah's lamps, Maria simply cleared her throat and pointed at it. He put it back. At 1:47 p.m., 13 minutes before the deadline, Kyle climbed into the driver's seat. The engine turned over. The car pulled away from the curb. And as it disappeared down the street, 300 bikers erupted in cheers, horns, and triumphant engine revs that shook the entire neighborhood. Sarah stood in her driveway, keys in her hand, new keys, changed by a locksmith who donated his services, and stared at her front door. Her home. Frank approached quietly. "Ready?" Sarah looked at him, tears streaming down her face. "Let's go home." Sarah's hand trembled as she slid the new key into the lock. It fit perfectly. The door swung open, and she stepped into her house for the first time in 3 days. Emma and Max rushed past her, squealing with joy as they ran through the rooms, reclaiming their space. But Sarah stood frozen in the doorway, taking it in. The house was a disaster. Trash everywhere, walls scuffed and damaged. Her furniture moved, broken, or missing entirely. The kitchen was filthy. Her bedroom. She couldn't even look at her bedroom, where Kyle had slept in her bed. She felt her throat tighten. Then Frank's voice came from behind her. "We're not done yet." She turned to find not just Frank, but dozens of Iron Hawks streaming through the door, carrying cleaning supplies, toolboxes, paint cans, and garbage bags. "What are you? Did you think we'd leave the job half finished?" Maria asked, already tying her hair back. "Your dad gave us shelter. We're giving you yours back, the right way." What happened next was something Sarah would remember for the rest of her life. The bikers transformed into a restoration crew. Tommy and 3 others hauled out every piece of trash, filling a dumpster that had mysteriously appeared in the driveway. A woman named Jackie, who turned out to be a professional cleaner, organized a scrubbing team that attacked the kitchen and bathrooms with industrial-strength supplies. Rod and 5 burly men repaired the broken window in the living room, replacing the glass with expert precision. "Did construction for 20 years, Rod explained, wiping his hands. "This is nothing." Frank himself worked on the front porch, repainting the railings that had been scratched and damaged. He worked slowly, carefully, as if each brushstroke mattered. By 3 p.m., the transformation was stunning. Floors mopped and vacuumed, walls scrubbed clean, windows gleaming. The kitchen spotless, with Maria organizing Sarah's dishes back into the cabinets. Dishes the bikers had carefully washed after finding them shoved into a closet. A biker named Luis, who owned a furniture store, showed up with a truck. "Heard you might need a new mattress," he said, helping carry in a queen-size bed. "Can't have you sleeping on what those criminals touched." Sarah tried to protest the cost, but Luis waved her off. "Already paid for. Consider it a housewarming gift." In the backyard, someone had repaired the fence. Another group had mowed the lawn and planted flowers along the pathway. Emma's swing set, which had been broken, was now fixed and repainted a cheerful blue. Max discovered his room had been completely restored, his posters back on the walls, his books reorganized on the shelf, even his Legos sorted by color. He ran to Sarah, crying happy tears. "It's perfect, Mom. It's exactly how it was." But it was Emma who made Sarah completely break down. The little girl emerged from her room holding a stuffed rabbit, the same dirty one from the minivan, except now it was clean, stitched where it had been torn, with a small pink ribbon around its neck. "Miss Jackie fixed Mr. Hoppy," Emma whispered, hugging the rabbit close. Sarah knelt and pulled both her children into a fierce embrace, sobbing openly. At 5 p.m., as the sun began setting, the work was complete. Frank found Sarah standing in her father's old workshop in the garage, staring at the tools that had been returned to their proper places. In her hands, she held the photo of her father in his military uniform. The glass cracked, but the photo intact. "Found it under a couch cushion," Frank said quietly. "Thought you'd want it back." "I don't know how to thank you," Sarah said, her voice raw. "Any of you. What you've done." "Your dad didn't want thanks either," Frank interrupted gently. "He just did what was right. We're doing the same." He reached into his vest and pulled out a folded piece of worn leather, a patch from the Iron Hawks 2008 ride, the one from that snowy night. Her father's name was embroidered on it, John Mitchell, honorary Iron Hawk. "We made this for him back then, but never got to give it to him before he passed." Frank held it out. "I think he'd want you to have it." Sarah's vision blurred with tears as she took the patch. Frank pulled a hammer and nail from his belt. "May I?" Sarah nodded, unable to speak. Frank nailed the patch to the doorframe of the workshop, right at eye level, a permanent reminder, a promise, a symbol. "Your home's protected," he said simply. "Always will be. Any trouble, you call. We're family now." Outside, the bikers were mounting their bikes, preparing to leave. Neighbors had come out to wave and thank them. Mrs. Chun brought cookies. Mr. Velasquez shook every hand he could reach. Sarah walked outside with Emma and Max, watching as 300 engines roared to life one final time. Frank climbed onto his bike, then paused and looked back at Sarah's house, clean, restored, safe. He raised his fist in salute. Sarah raised hers back, tears streaming down her face. Then, with a thunderous rumble that echoed through the neighborhood like a blessing, the Iron Hawks rode away into the sunset, their mission complete. Sarah stood in her driveway, her children beside her, and looked up at her house. Their house. Home. In the workshop doorframe, her father's patch caught the fading light, and Sarah could almost hear his voice. Good people still exist. They'll show up when you need them most. He'd been right all along.